What's up, dudes? Welcome back to another episode of Rhomas Men's Team. Pretty simple. We are a group of guys helping each other make progress towards each other's goals. If you're new to the channel, awesome and welcome. If you want to help support the channel and join our pro team, head over to rhomasteam.com/pro, where you can contribute to us on a donation basis. We also give you access to exclusive content, mastermind groups, etc., etc. So anyway, hope you enjoy this episode, and we'll see you on the team. What's going on, brother? Back from Florida. Welcome back, homie.
Thank you, Wes. And slim and trim as ever.
Hell yeah, man.
It's a miracle because I had 2 desserts and 3 pastas. Can you imagine?
Oh, really? In 5 days?
In 1 week, in 5 days. I know. No body shaming, Wes. No body shaming.
No, I'm actually saying that's good.
I know.
Like you're on vacation for 5 days. You know?
Yeah. I guess it just goes to show when I really take my foot off the brake, what like undisciplined, really pleasureful eating. I don't know if that's a word. Pleasureful eating looks like, you know?
Oh yeah.
And it goes to show that on the end as well, that it doesn't take that much exercise to keep the scale where you want it. I did one self-directed workout in a gym and one Zoom trainer workout in a gym. Mm-hmm. And, ate moderately well, and I kept the scale exactly where I wanted it to be. So
love it, man.
All things are possible.
Hell yeah. Awesome. Great job on not having 5/6, 7, 8, 9, 10 desserts and many bowls of pasta. That's the hardest thing on vacation, dude. I swear, for me, there's no limit of caloric intake. I'm convinced that it's limitless. Like if I want to, I could eat 20,000 calories in a day. Oh yeah,
and it's, especially with you're on vacation.
Yep.
You're eating out every meal, right? Not preparing it yourself, probably. And then those travel days where you're at the airport. I saw at the airport, I was looking at the calories. It's so psycho I'm getting. I'm just like waiting in line, and I'm just looking at all the calories of the different foods. And there was a bag of caramel M&Ms, and it's called a family pack or something. But you know it's not a family pack.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's 1,300 calories for the one bag. And it's like, but it says like 100, the big number, 130, right?
Yeah.
Per serving.
Oh, yeah.
And then in tiny letters, small, like number of servings in this bag, 10.
Yep.
So that's how they get you.
How many grams of sugar did you happen to take note of that?
No, but I turned it around as soon as I did the math on how many calories. Oh, but yeah. I'm sure it's 32. It's probably 32 grams of sugar per serving, right? That's what a Coke is.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. And let me I'm going to get this out of my fridge. So just so you guys know.
That's how they get you, Fran.
That's how they get. Let's see here.
Yeah, my scorecard was kind of disrupted a little bit last week, but I still managed to meditate every day, move a little bit. Sleep was pretty good, but I was on a pull-out couch. And boys, when you're in your 40s, a pull-out couch is like, you can get CTE from that shit. It's like, I'm a bad shot. I need one of those Harvey Weinstein rollers or walkers with like the golf balls. Oh, no, sorry. The tennis balls on the bottom, you know?
Yeah. That's so funny.
That.
Oh, yeah. All right. So let me share this with you. So just so everybody knows, I am, let me see here. I am testing how dense I can get my diet without crossing a certain line. Now, I normally don't like to take any supplements at all. So just like full disclosure here. But I'm trying a few, and whether or not you want to count matcha as a supplement. So if you just think about what Ray just said, so 1,300 calories for a pack of caramel M&Ms. So the 3 that I have here, matcha green tea. I just went to the farmer's market this weekend and got this. Like this guy flies to Japan, and they have a farm there, and this guy's like super samurai style. I want to actually fly out there at some point and meet this guy. So anyway, matcha green tea. and then this stuff called mud water.
Now, are you doing the mud water because of Instagram ads? Is that how they got
no,
to you?
No. Funny enough, I actually got this like a year ago.
Oh.
Yeah. And then if not even more than that. And then athletic greens, which I've been hearing Tim Ferriss talk about this for, I don't know, like 5 years or something. It's been on enough podcasts.
I would call that, we're talking supplements. I would call that a supplement, I think.
Yeah, I think these two in particular. So I'm approaching it not from a macronutrient standpoint though, but from a micronutrient standpoint. I just want to test it. I'm starting to train a lot more. So let's just compare that. So you had 1,300 calories. I would imagine there's very little to no vitamins in
vitamin
there.
C. Yeah.
Yeah. So bear with me. So this probably has this athletic greens alone. Let's say, okay, so number one, and bear with me, it's going to be a little tedious, but spirulina, apple powder, wheatgrass powder, alfalfa powder, chlorella powder, barley, leaf powder, fruit juice powder, broccoli powder, papaya, pineapple, bilberry, beetroot, rose hip, carrot root, spinach leaf, cocoa or cacao. I never had the cacao. Yeah. Grape seed, green tea extract, licorice root, ginger, slippery elm, and kelp. Okay. And then it's got a bunch of other like herbs, etc. And then mushrooms, probably, I don't know, 12 different types of herbs, and then probably 6 different types of mushrooms. Then on top of it, so take that, and then on top of it, all of this in the mud water, which is mushroom blend, which is chaga, reishi, lion's mane, cordyceps, blah, 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 cacao, cinnamon, turmeric, ginger, cardamom, organic black pepper, nutmeg, cloves, organic black tea powder, Himalayan pink sea salt, and then green tea. So all of those things, which I don't know, Ray, what would you guess? Probably 30 different types of sources of nutrients. And this is 20 calories and this is 50 calories. So 80 calories in total. Let's round it up to 100 for the green tea. So 100 calories.
So that's the calories. What's the cost of those items?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think the mud water was maybe $30, $40, maybe wrong. Let's round up to 50 a piece. Okay. I'm just guessing.
And then about 50 servings. Or 30 servings.
30 servings here.
A month.
And then 30 servings here.
A month.
Yeah.
So it's $100 a month for the two. 100 calories per serving.
Yep.
And that's $1.50 per serving, I guess.
Yeah. So, and that doesn't count the green tea. So,
and what do you get? What do you think you get from all that?
Okay. So first disclaimers. The first answer is I don't know. I don't know technically, but I know that in every book that I read on health, that's like actually a real health book. It talks about all of these things, mushrooms, turmeric, ginger, etc. Also, another disclaimer or another like quick note on this. I think you guys can see from the Discord post, like I'd like to think I eat a super nutrient dense, meal buffet every single day, quite literally. So it's not like I'm going and eating pizza and then acting like athletic greens or mud water is going to cure me, It's going to outwork the bad diet to refer to what you said last. Yeah. Exactly. So I am just testing to see if this does something. So I'll test it over the next 30 days. I'm just seeing because the only piece that I have a little trouble with fruits and vegetables nowadays is apparently they have lost a bit of their nutrient density just through the way that we farm, through the way that like the turnover in soil, et cetera. So I'm just testing to see if there's any holes in my diet in terms of nutrients, if I can fill those in. So I just want to give you guys
how do you verify it after 30 days, 60 days, whatever?
It's going to be purely subjective. And the other thing with that is
experiential. Like if you feel better, mood,
Yeah.
energy.
Yeah, and this is why I'm a little bit I'm more okay with taking these as supplements than I would be with, let's just say, a random protein powder. It seems like these companies, I could be completely wrong, but it seems like these companies have similar values that I do. It seems like, at least the way they market, like, oh, we're not going creating these in a lab. We're going and we're actually refining these whole foods and we're just grinding them down to powders and then we put them in powders. Now I know obviously that you're stripping away a lot of the fiber, you're stripping away a lot of, well, I think technically, and then the water, obviously, et cetera. But so anyway.
You're bordering on processed food, or it is more of a processed foods than the blender of real veggies you make.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'll test it out and just letting you guys know that in full disclosure, if you ever want to try it. I have no idea if it'll work, but we'll find out.
Yeah, and like we discussed last week, I'm on what Kaizen referred to as a very kind of old school muscle building plan where I'm doing 3 personal trainer sessions a week, and they have me just eating as much protein as possible, protein shake right after the workout. Yep. And for me, it's and I want to stick with it like you talk about. Like I want to stick with it for a couple of months at least. Not see how much weight I lost after 2 weeks or how much my energy is improved after 2 weeks, but like after 3 months, let's say I'm at month 2, and I'm the only thing I'm wondering about is I'm eating so much red meat that I might need to incorporate some of what you're talking about to get all my veggie based minerals and healthy ingredients. So I'm not a carnivore. It's not like one of those strictly meat diets, but it is a lot of steak and chicken.
Yeah, and for those of you following a similar diet that Ray's doing, I did that for years, like quite literally. I used to eat a huge slab of London broil steak because it was like the cheapest and at least fatty steak that I could get my hands on at the time. Like literally like the entire slab. You know how they give it to you at the grocery store and it's just on that like styrofoam slab? Like that was my serving every single night, no exceptions. Sometimes I used to
throw
up.
What they serve the homeless guys on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. So I would say if people are going to do that, make sure if you can get your hands on the highest quality meat possible. And it's going to be a shitload more expensive than if you just go to like your local grocery store. But so either a Whole Foods or some sort of like butcher that we know it's coming from organic, grass fed in particular, because if it's not grass fed, it throws off the omegas, which apparently is a big deal. So anyway, all of that as the gateway conversation to the next 2 chapters of 8 Dates by John Gottman. So for those of you who are following along,
chapter 4 is the cost of love, how to talk about work and money with your spouse. And by the way, guys, like I've said before, even if you're not in a relationship, even if you don't get around to having these conversations, I tried to spring the trust date on my wife 2 weeks ago. I was like, do you trust me? Because the definition of trust is, and I read it from the PDF. Yeah. She wasn't into it. She wasn't feeling it.
You didn't get the upfront contract.
It turned what was looking like a very good date into possibly a very bad date. So I just had to abandon ship. But even if you're not doing these dates with your spouse or partner right now, even if you're not in a relationship, these are great know thyself lessons. You'll see with this money thing, it just talks about how you were programmed and imprinted by your parents' views of money. Were they saving every dime and never celebrating ever? Were they chaotic and just partying as soon as a buck or two came into the family bank account? You'll see that there's a great self-reflection that can occur outside of the discussion with the partner. And Wes, do you want to give your standard disclosure? You're not giving financial advice, etc.
Yeah. So this particular chapter on 8 Dates is about money. I think money lands top 1 to 3 reasons for divorce in almost every list that I've ever read on divorce.
Hey dudes, sorry for the interruption here. Just wanted to let you know if you want to join our pro team, go to romasteam.com/pro. You can help support the channel. You will also get access to exclusive content, masterminds, one-on-one sessions, etc. All right, back to the episode.
It's top one. It's top one in my household.
Is it? Yeah.
It's top one of one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I could totally understand that. So yeah, I work in finance. Obviously, many of you probably know that. So this is not me in any way giving formal, professional financial advice. We're just strictly casually talking about this because it's from the book. So that's my disclaimer. All right, Ray, what did you get from this topic? And please don't be afraid to share your own stories on this, because you've said multiple times that this is a source of conflict. So money inside of a relationship.
Absolutely. And it is a complex, nuanced, multi-headed beast. Like my dad was a doctor, but parents, so when he worked, relatively good income, good and great income. I mean, way more than I make now, but alcoholic, chaotic, not saving, not investing, bills constantly going unpaid. So it was this kind of it was chaotic. There were lean times. There were flush times. Go to private school one year, go to public school the next. Was rich her whole life, but her dad died. Her mom remarried. That guy died. So there was a different kind of instability there, not monetary, not financial. Foreclosure was never a risk. And so even though we were you would look at us and both of us, and you'd think white privilege, the way we experienced money growing up really informed a very different outlook and caused conflict and fights. And as we all know, the Gottman method is not to ignore conflicts, but to have healthy conflict and learn to accept each other and coexist. So one of the first lines that I highlighted in the chapter 4, The Cost of Love, Work and Money, is what you just said. Financial arguments are the single best predictor of divorce. They're referring to a
so wild.
Yeah. The other 4 issues that couples get into the most are sex, in-laws, alcohol and drug use, and parenting. So sex, are we having enough of it or too much of it? In-laws, why do you always pick up the phone when your mom calls, but I'm never allowed to see mine on the holidays? Alcohol or drug use, one partner's using too much. And then parenting style, I think, right? Should we raise the kids religious? Should we over-program them? Should we just let them be free range? So that's how important this is. And whether I had a job or not, or how much I'm contributing to the relationship, was always a source of conflict for the last 20 years with her and I, until we started really understanding how we both experience financial insecurity, right? My definition of having enough money is very low. I mean, as long as someone else is covering the basis, really is how it works. And her definition of having enough is way higher. It's having only when you have that big house, you have that car, you have that rainy day fund, and all these other things. Only then will she permit herself to be happy. Of course, as we know, that day never comes, right? And so you could spend your whole life unhappy. And another excellent point that really electrified me was couples need to avoid the dichotomy of characterizing one another in terms of the 2 most common stereotypes. Now, Wes, what do you think the 2 most common stereotypes are? If in terms of a wife calling a husband, well, you never this when it comes to money, and the husband saying, well, at least I do this because you never do that.
Oh, so one more time, what I think the 2 most common stereotypes are?
Stereotypical roles that a couple will assign each other.
Yeah, so it's probably, and let me know if I'm wrong here, I read this chapter 4 weeks ago. Something along the lines of, I'm just guessing, either you spend too much or you spend too little, right? You spend everything, you never want to spend anything. Right.
So Gottman calls that the spender and the saver. And I've had this
Yep.
conversation. I remember specifically a couple who is now divorced. We were having dinner with them at a Mexican restaurant in Midtown Manhattan, and her husband made all the money and complained that and so he would go through the credit card statement with her and say like, why did you spend this much on that? Why did you spend this much? Like a kind of like autistic level of kind of specificity. And she would just spend the money. On the other side of the table, my wife agreed with that husband, and I was assigned the role of the spender, right? So it doesn't have to be the male is typically this, the white woman is typically that. At this dinner, it was like, and this is pre-pandemic, before I did the Gottman wedding counseling. The spender and the saver is like the most obvious complaint format or paradigm that couples find themselves in. And it is not helpful. The saver sees his money habits in a positive light and the spenders in a negative light, and vice versa, right? The spender sees their money habits in a positive light and the savers in a negative light.
Yep. So how do you work through that?
Well,
and especially you, given that you have experience with it, and you've also worked with a Gottman specialist, like what are some ways to work through that?
It's funny because I think if we wanted to be toxic, you and I could describe you as the saver and me as the spender, right? And a therapist I once had the other term for spender was the evacuator, because like I evacuate money. Like picture an airplane toilet that whoosh, like the money just like flying out and disappearing into the sky, you know, over like 30,000 feet above. Evacuator. And so I think that if we wanted to be toxic, I could call you the spender, or I could call you the saver and me the spender, right? And how we get through that is a conversation. This date format is a conversation about how our parents' behavior programmed us about money, right? So for me, it was the chaos of never knowing if bills were going to get paid made me seek a financially stable partner, I would say. And then it's that kind of like evil situation where that thing that you swear you're never going to do as an adult is actually your definition of normal. And so it's very easy to fall into that trap.
Oh yeah, totally. I could definitely see seeking security to solve that problem, but I can also see that the muscle memory from growing up a kid like is exactly that. You learned all of the techniques, all of the patterns, all of the things that are congruent with that. So it totally makes sense. Even though it seems paradoxical, I could see how that would come to fruition.
And so the way to work through this is the date, right? So the next section of this chapter is working hard for the money. Yes, work means money, but it can also mean personal fulfillment, accomplishment, even purpose, meaning and passion in life, as we know, especially for men, right? Where their sense of meaning and sense of personal value and personal worth comes from our work. So this conversation about money also includes the if one spouse works a lot more, right? Because the if one spouse, it's not just if one spouse makes more money, it's also if one spouse works a lot more and does less around the house or isn't around in the house. That can cause friction. The division of labor will change once you have children, and it changes as you switch gears and as you work together to support each other's dreams. It changes. So work is so much more than a paycheck, and your views about work as well as money will have to evolve over time.
Yeah. I struggle in this category. Definitely. It's been a source of contention in every relationship that I've had. And I can tell you that I need to change my perspective on this, because my default is the man, and this is probably old, this is definitely old school, but like the man is the hunter. He's supposed to bring home the meat. And this is hardwired in our DNA. So let me go and do that. That might mean when I was working in New York, work 90, 100 hours a week, but that's my job. And now in hindsight, I can totally see how that was such an extreme position to take. And the counterbalancing argument is like, all right, dude, but like, that's not a relationship. I would see the girlfriend at the time, I don't know, like 5, 6, 7 hours a week. And I just expected, like, that was my narrative. Okay, well, this is what a man's supposed to do. So like, if you want a real man, then this is what you're signing up for. And that's not true at all. Right. But I let that mental model really block the progress of the relationship. Mm-hmm. And I have to fight against it constantly still. And I think a lot of men have to fight against it. And it definitely is a dichotomy to be managed, because at some point, if you reduce the scope of work down to the point where you're not producing substantial or sufficient income for the family, then I would say, just man to man, that's not a good way to keep your spouse attracted to you, because you're not providing security. So Ray, where do you think that lands?
Well, it's almost a paradox, but it's more of a balancing act, I think. Yep. Right? Where on the one hand, on the one extreme, you have working all the time, bad, providing lots for your family, good, right? So there's that paradox. And then on the other hand, not working much, bad, being available for your family, good, right? So there's two paradoxes, and you have to be in the middle. You have to find this balance where you're making as much money as possible and being as available as possible.
Yeah. And that's a good line there. What I tell everybody, clients, et cetera, especially young clients, I just had this conversation with somebody on this podcast right now. Make as much money as possible. Like, because I do this for a living, I can tell you that 99% of people do not calculate their finances correctly, especially in the future. Like, so for instance, I'll give you an example. I have a specific example right now of a client who has a neighbor who's paying $13,000 a month in long-term care costs for health issues. They're older, right? Guess how many people actually calculate that as a financial risk in the future? Basically zero. $13,000 a month on top of normal expenses, which you can imagine are probably quite high out here.
And it doesn't have to be yourself. Like I've seen my mother-in-law pay that much or more for her parents' long-term care.
Totally believe it. So it's, how do you manage that? So the mental model I've now adopted is make as much money as possible within a given time frame per day and per week. Like, that's all I focus on, making as much money as possible within 8 hours, 5 days a week. That's what I try for. And you'd be surprised. I've been surprised with how much capital that can produce, even more capital than what I was producing on Wall Street, working 100 hours a week, just because that's now the mental shift. Now, it took me a long time to get there, right? There was a dead period there for a while, but that's the whole point, is that if you're bringing in the mental model to your relationship that I just need to work 15 hours a day, and Cindy, you just have to deal with it, right? I don't know that that's the healthiest. I've been that guy. I've been there. It doesn't produce a fruitful and long-lasting relationship.
Well, that dovetails into the next section, which is, you say make as much money as possible. Well, what is the definition of enough, right? Enough money in the bank account, enough money as an annual salary, enough money in a biweekly paycheck. For many women, having enough money can mean many different things. Women often equate enough money with love, respect, and security. Enough money is also equated with acceptability, attractiveness, and strength. So it's interesting, right? Where the woman typically feels that there's enough money in the relationship. And I'm just gonna riff on that. That I suppose she feels attractive if she feels like she's being taken care of, or she's hot enough to be with a rich guy. There's some kind of like, that might be a leap linguistically, but that's what came to my mind. That she's good enough as a mother or a wife, or she's doing the right thing if she's in a financially secure household. Men, on the other hand, equate money with being competent, responsible, and a provider. So it's interesting how, according to Gottman's research, money, or having enough money, really taps into these instinctual kind of animal level needs.
Without a doubt.
Right? The goal is to find out what money means to you and understand what money means to your partner.
Yeah.
And so how do you feel about that?
Oh, dude. Well, I think all of these can be solved very rationally, but it is a bit tedious. So, for instance, where like quantifying and calculating enough money is actually, you can get pretty close to accurate. So, for instance, and this would require a certain level of awareness of the male and the female. So, for instance, like one of the things that has to be talked about with money is for sure status. It's one of the fewest things that it's very much not talked about in the category of money, because it's usually physical goods and services, et cetera. Like, oh, we want a car, we want a house, et cetera. It's like, but you most likely also want status. And if you think that you don't, I would argue that like you probably need to rethink that. As humans, we're social creatures. We compete in a hierarchy. We like this. You can go and read Robert Sapolsky's books on this. Like, status is a very real thing, and it is hard to break the chains of that. So chances are, if your wife or yourself, your girlfriend or yourself has that component, like that has to be talked about. You know, because I can tell you, so you know how many people have told me, oh, we just want a car to get us from point A to point B.
I was going to say, dude, it took years for me to understand how status informed my behavior on the road. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, yeah. Dude, and I'll have clients who tell me that, like, oh, we just want a car to get us from point A to point B. That's why we have a 2019 Toyota Camry. It's like, okay, first of all, that is well above the sufficient line of getting you from point A to point B. A Toyota Camry is, I don't know, let's call it $30,000 brand new or whatever the number is. If you were solely trying to get a car to get you from point A to point B, you'd probably only have to spend $7,000. Rather, you would go and buy a used car, probably less than that, a couple $1,000s, right? So, and then even that, most 90% of those people who say it's not for status, it's so that they can receive the status of then telling their neighbors how smart they are because they don't need to spend money on a car, right?
How enlightened they are, how evolved they are. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. So having that discussion, I do think needs to be important inside of this discussion, the Gottman discussions on money. It's like, okay, babe, how important is it to you? And what level of status are you talking about? Like
the word ego comes to mind.
Oh yeah, totally. But it's a real it's hardwired, right? Like you will not fit in certain circles if you don't have the same uniform, if you don't have the same toys, like that. It's just the reality. Now, I do think it's important to discuss what circle do you want to fit into, right? Like that's the important thing. I do not want to be in the circle that's driving around a Rolls Royce. I legitimately don't want to be. Like I legit don't want that. But I do want to be at a certain level of status so that I can hang with that group, right? And I want to be at the top of that group. So having a very open dialogue about that particular thing, because if you really want to drive a high-end Mercedes and you want that kind of lifestyle that comes along with that, you want the fancy life, the fancy spa, the fancy gym, all that stuff, then fucking say that. Because if you don't, then number one, you don't have the guts to say it out loud. But then number two, now you have only half of the partnership working towards that goal, right? So have the guts to say that stuff. So anyway, that's my kind of riff on that. But I think that's probably the most under talked about topic because nobody wants to say that. Like, hey, babe, like how high of status do you want to be in society?
Dude, so many things come to mind. First of all, if you don't mind me sharing my personal experience here. So when Thea was about to be born, my mother-in-law said, you need a bigger car. I'm going to lease you a Mercedes-Benz station wagon E350. And this is the like super rich soccer mom, aristocratic, British, whatever kind of car. This is Mercedes advertises that their highest net worth individuals select the E-Class wagon out of all like their supercars and everything they have. And I say in my simple wisdom, I said, Nancy, please don't get me this car. Because that Seinfeld episode where once you go to first class, you can't go back to coach.
Right. Yeah.
And oh my God, it was so delicious, man. The power, the leathers, Mercedes, they know exactly what they're doing. They know how to seduce you from a status level, right? 3-year lease. We rolled that over into a smaller, it was so important to me to have a Mercedes to project rich guy that we were rolling it over into smaller and smaller Mercedes, desperately trying to hang on to this, right? I didn't know at the time. With my therapist, outstanding therapist, Sean, who is specialized in men and men's issues, really amazing guy. He said, Ray, if you wanted to be honest, if you were truly honest, there would be a bumper sticker on the back of that Mercedes that said, lease payments provided by mother-in-law Nancy, right?
Yep.
Because, and I've talked about this before, it's because I wanted so desperately for people to look at me and say, that's a rich guy.
Yep.
And I didn't have a job at the time, or I was struggling to find my place in the world in my career, but it was so important for me. This also links to that line from the Jordan Peterson lecture I went to earlier this year. And he said, beware of unearned virtue. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
That's
Great
what I
line.
was seeking. That's what I was seeking, right? I was seeking the Wall Street, the guy who, that virtue of that status of the guy who worked hard in high school, worked hard in college, got that great job, and makes a great living.
Yeah, I'm writing that down. Unearned virtue. Phenomenal.
Unearned virtue, dude. So what do I drive now? I drive a Toyota Prius, dude. And nobody thinks white privilege when they see me in my Toyota Prius, man. It's funny. It feels like a nice car. It feels like, Toyota makes amazing cars. Dude, Toyota makes the best cars. In terms of reliability. And it's only when I see another Prius going down the road, when look at that fucking sexless librarian in there. Oh my God, that's what I look like. But for someone who started their own business 2 years ago, who really isn't really in the zone yet in terms of my career, the Toyota Prius is the most appropriate vehicle. And I'm signaling, I'm accurately signaling I remind myself, I'm accurately signaling my status,
Love it.
And it's liberating. It's liberating because in my car, at my, all the things you just said, the house, the fancy gym, the fancy country club, guilty. But at least when I'm in my Prius, I'm accurately reflecting my true mediocre financial status.
Got it.
Right? In terms of how far I intend to climb.
Yeah. Well, and I think you are re-gifting yourself the ability to climb. I think for a lot of people who are living on credit cards or who are living off mommy and daddy's checkbook, whatever that is, you're robbing yourself of the trophies that you could be earning along the way.
The best part.
Absolutely.
The best part.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you and your spouse, or if people listening to this, you and your girlfriends can talk about, hey, where are we right now? And what's the ambition level? Maybe you don't want the house on the hill, but maybe you do, or whatever version of that. Okay, let's earn it together. And how can we both equally contribute to that journey within reason? I think that's a great conversation to have. Not, oh, we're living off of mom.
Same as fitness and weight loss, you know? Like the idea that I'm stronger, fitter, more shredded, leaner, and a lower weight on the scale every month for the next year is so exciting. Rather than like going to Dr. Shapiro, getting it all like lipoed off and having to lie when people say, oh man, what was your secret? You know?
Yep.
Like that journey, like down in Florida, I was watching these, I went to the Presbyterian church with my mother-in-law as a treat to her. I just crossed my fingers the whole time. And we got talking about faith, and we watched this series of videos called Alpha, right? Alpha, just look up Alpha Religion video series. And it's all about like packaging faith and Jesus for a skeptical, modern, young audience. And there's this quote they throw up there on the screen by Jim Carrey saying, I wish everybody could be rich and famous so that they would realize, and I can't remember the exact term, but it's not, you don't feel any better once you're there. It doesn't solve anything. You know what I mean? You're still wanting and yearning. It doesn't fill the emptiness.
Yeah, which is a very common narrative that you hear from a certain amount of wealthy and famous people.
Sorry, do you want to riff on that more eloquently or more thoroughly, that narrative?
Yeah, so I do think it's a bit of, I say this respectfully. So I think if money viewed in a healthy way is one of the most resourceful resources that you can have. Why? Because you can trade it for other resources. I do appreciate what Oprah actually said about this. She says, it's something along the lines of like, money doesn't create happiness. She's like, but don't get me wrong, I am super happy that I'm wealthy. Like something along those lines. Because that's more real, right? It's like, okay, if I were to go to Jim Carrey and say, okay, fine, fair enough, give away all your money. I highly doubt, right? And shut down all your social media accounts or whatever. Like, don't take another interview. Like, go and hide away from the fame and hide away from the money. I highly doubt that he would do that. I mean, it seems like he's got every opportunity to do that if he wants to. Like, that's not hard, you know?
Let me give you the accurate quote, okay?
Yeah.
I wish everyone could get rich and famous and everything they ever dreamed of so that they can see that's not the answer.
Yep. Yeah, I've watched the speech before. It was like in some sort of like montage video that I watched. And to be fair to Jim Carrey, I don't think he was necessarily implying probably that like, oh, you should just give away all your money because, you know. But
it's more of a spiritual discussion, I guess, is what he was getting at.
Yeah, totally. So I think, yes, you can take the view of money way too far. And a lot of people fall in the trap of like, this is going to solve all of my problems. I personally think that if you earn your money, right, money does two things. Number one, if you earn the money, money can help solve a lot of problems. I can tell you for sure. I've got problems with my back right now. And I'm telling you, it is not cheap to go to the physical therapist, right? Like the one that I want to go to, the research that I did, it's not in the network. It's $250 a pop. It takes money to do that. That's every single week on top of a chiropractor, et cetera. That's just one example of how money is helping solve that problem. So I do think money doesn't solve all problems, but I think it helps a ton with the majority of problems. The second thing is, if you are the one who earned the money, then I would argue that the few problems that are left over, right, like the majority of those, you now have the skill sets to solve those problems because it forced you to build the muscle tissue to become the type of man who solves problems like that. If you can build a business, I swear I've never built a family yet, but I will bet money that me building a business with my partner and going through all of those little nuances of how to solve it, how to handle interpersonal conflict, like all that stuff, I'm going to assume it's going to help me build a family. So if you build wealth yourself on your own back or with a team, I'm going to imagine it makes you more skilled at handling those sliver of problems that's left over. And of course, there's going to be still a sliver of problems, but that are left over even after that point. But the point is, like, having a healthy view of money and work and effort, I think, is paramount to a relationship development.
So, Wes,
Yep.
you'll notice that Jim Carrey didn't say anything about work and effort, right?
True.
And so I think a broader, or so something I can add on to this quote is, so I wish everyone could get rich and famous and everything they ever dreamed of, so they can see it's not the answer. Just look at anyone who was born into wealth or born into fame.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
Because then it's without that Jenga stick of effort, work, wisdom, trial and error, learning, trying.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. And what Kaizen was saying, money doesn't fix everything, but it fixes a lot and makes a lot of things easier to fix. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And of course, you can create more problems with money, but like I'm going to imagine that especially guys listening to on this podcast who are interested in self-growth, personal growth, not skipping the details, not skipping the steps, like money will enhance your ability to create a great life and to build a future for you and your family.
Can we say earning money?
Absolutely.
So can I add that word to what you just said? Earning money will help you. And what was the end of it?
I mean, to building a great life and great future with the family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No doubt about it, at least in my opinion. So Ray, wrapping this up, what are some parting words that you have on the money section?
Well, let me go through the speed dating chapter summary.
Yep.
Money is one of the top 5 issues that cause conflict in couples. Stereotyping one half of a couple as the saver and the other as the spender isn't helpful. Each of you has a family history and values that were instilled in you. Your work is to understand each other, not to define each other, or to have the same values at the end of the exchange. Work is the other big commitment in your life besides your marriage and your family and your faith, I would add. Work, for those of us who prioritize. Work and the pursuit of money can be the third party in a relationship, demanding of your time and energy. Balancing your relationship and your work is fundamental to the success of your marriage. Money issues aren't about dollars and cents. They are about what money means to each partner in a relationship. Couples report that sharing household tasks is the most important element of a successful marriage after fidelity and a good sex life. If one of you is under enormous pressure and stress from work and working long hours, this can create loneliness and a lack of emotional connection in the relationship. It pulls people apart. Discovering what money means to both of you will go a long way to resolving the conflicts you may have around money. And this is the best part. Cultivate gratitude for what you have and the contribution each of you makes to the relationship. So that was the big word that we failed to use in this discussion is gratitude part.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
Love it. The only thing I would add to that, just my final piece of not wisdom here, but my final piece of opinion here is, as a man, you're most likely it's going to be the default that it's on you. I think that's a fair thing to say, that probably it's going to be the default that this is on you. In my opinion, you should look at that as an honor to bear that cross. Like, we all have our crosses to bear, and I think it's an honor to bear that one. And it's fucking stressful. And for those of you guys who are listening to this and you're on that path, you know how stressful it is. And you want to say at times like, fuck, do you have any idea how hard it is to make 50 grand, to make 60 grand, whatever that number is for you. And it's like, yeah, I hear you, dude. It's fucking hard. And we're all in this together. But it is one of the most honorable things and crosses you can bear for yourself as a human and as a male. So if you guys are out there fighting that fight, keep doing it, but do not back down from it. Do not fucking back down from it.
And lucky for us, it's what we're programmed to do.
Yep.
Whether it's the maker or the universe or evolutionary biology, whatever you want to call it, that is the role we are programmed to do. That's in our hard drive. That's in our we're hardwired to work. And we are not hardwired, as lucky as you might think you are if you marry a rich woman or if you're born into wealth. We're not hardwired to be idle rich. And that comes along with a whole fucking garbage can full of problems. Addiction, self-worth, obesity, idle hands make the devil's work easy. I mean, it's just, we are programmed to work. So work.
Yep. 100%. All right, dudes. Love you guys. Have a great weekend.
Thank
Ray,
you,
I know we
Wes.
were trying to get to 2 topics, but we ripped
This book's too good, man. We got to do 1 chapter per.
Yep.
All
right, dudes.
The next
have an awesome fucking week.
Is room to grow.
Yep. Family.
Family and kids. All right, Wes. Friday, baby.
All right, brother. Later, dudes.